different shows years in advance. In this way, they at very least function as a counterbalance to the speed and recklessness of art
53 pages loves.
Museums aren't separate from collectors. They're
Can we see all at once?
Long-time collectors coming together to broker power and collectively determine what art they deem worthy of a price increase through a retrospective exhibition.
7 relationship books. 17 sex
form of price fixing
books.
That some of the world's largest art collectors have decided is no longer necessary by opening their own private museums.
One spiritual,
where they can
you guys.
exact complete control over
Slow
programming.
sex.
Enter the Broad Museum, the Brandt Foundation, the Rebel Collection, CIFO, Mana Contemporary. The list is endless.
Probably.
When the people doing the majority of buying in the art market
Meditations.
all have their own
Wait,
museums,
so
their purchasing power becomes indecipherable from museum validation. The separation between church and state that once existed, aka the helpful lie that art museums' connoissorial authority was built on, is eliminated in the process. But the downward spiral doesn't end there. This increased competition from private museums has led many public museums to do credibility-destroying shows they believe will earn them blockbuster ticket sales. The types of lowbrow shows they would have been caught dead doing 2 decades ago, where museums once looked to teach young collectors proper connoisseurial taste. They now look to mirror young collectors' pre-existing taste. In the past decade, museums have effectively said, the customer is always right, so many times that the customers finally turned around and said, you know what? I am right. I don't need your help. But this loss of trust in museums as tastemakers
I'm so excited about this.
Stage for NFT platforms to come in and cut the middleman so collectors can finally buy directly from artists without seeking connoissorial approval. The thing is, young collectors have been buying straight from artists, and they've been doing it through vinyl toy collecting, streetwear, sneakers, and limited edition posters. They've been buying directly from artists who have fandoms, because it's the buyer confidence instilled by these fandoms that have replaced museum connoisseurship as defining young collectors' taste. To some extent, fandoms can be thought of as institutions because they perform a lot of the same roles museums do, just without a centralized bureaucracy. Fandoms support their favorite artists. They collect and preserve relics. They trace the influences of artists' work. They promote artists' new work. They're how people share in-person experiences together. Like museums before them, fandoms ensure that in the future, someone, somewhere, will know and care about the artist. Fandoms are what propelled artists like KAWS, Banksy, Daniel Arsham, Friends with You, Alec Monopoly, Shepard Fairey, just to name a few, all to the top of the market. It's this crew of post-taste, too-big-to-fail street artists who set the stage for this new crew of post-taste, too-big-to-fail NFT artists. What they showed is that when you're a truly popular artist, not just an invention of academic curators, it's actually possible to find more people to continue paying higher prices for your work because there are so many millions of people who are aware of you. Where before, artist prices would eventually need to be guaranteed by a museum's approval, these new artists
we need to start producing content now before we get to overwhelm people with your brain.
Connoisseurship had been simmering for a decade before Beeple showed up and sold an NFT of digital dick sketches to his fandom for $69 million. But it was this moment that forced everyone to collectively ask, who the fuck is steering this ship anymore? Beeple's massive auction didn't start this shift in power, but it was a clear indicator to everyone watching that museums were no longer in control over what art collectors were willing to speculate on. It also showed that
dream
fandoms,
frontier.
not museums, are now defining what art is popularly discussed. This all set the stage for NFT platforms who recognize this change and look to seize on the fact that the tail is now wagging the dog. The other development that set the stage for NFTs has been the relationship between the art world and Silicon Valley.
Share your books.
In hindsight, the way these two groups came together seems almost poetic, the way they'd been searching for each other for years, only to find love when they least expected it. I'm of course talking about the way the art market had been pining for Silicon Valley's money and how Silicon Valley's cryptocurrency has long been seeking an aesthetic purpose. Because for the past decade, the art world has viewed Silicon Valley as the great cash-stuffed whale they could never quite catch. This is because every time there's a new infusion of money to any particular location, the art world is sure to be not far behind, eager to offer those newly wealthy citizens dynamic opportunities for asset management with positive rates of return and tax-friendly storage facilities. This is why the New York art world has been flocking to Asia for the past decade to set up blue-chip galleries and art fairs around the rapid influx of billionaires. But during that time, there was another ascendant site of wealth and global political power even closer to home. On paper, Silicon Valley is a far more likely pairing with the New York-centered art world. I mean, think of it. The travel and shipping costs are lower, they share the same government, speak the same language, they're all a bunch of neoliberal yuppies. It looked like the perfect match. The only problem was, these Silicon Valley people did not want to buy art. And I should know, because I was there. I attended the Silicon Valley Art Fair in 2014 because I was exhibiting work there, and it was a fucking ghost town. All the galleries brought their most tech-adjacent artists to show off as a kind of olive.
So he remembered all of the movies he's seen and he put it in the list.
But the only problem was the locals didn't even bother to show up. Over the years, all types of reasons have been given for the art world's inability to connect with Silicon Valley as new collectors. Some people said it was a culture clash, that Silicon Valley types understand creation through the lens of startups. So if they're going to invest in a young creator, it's likely going to be a person making an app instead of making a painting. Some said the very idea of art as a functionless curiosity was seen as pointless to a group obsessed with utility. But if you drink beer and shot specials with an art dealer at that failed art fair, you might get an even more brutally honest reason for the disconnect, which is that Silicon Valley people aren't cool or sexy or hip or any of the vibes the art world traffics in. They're fucking nerds. And they're nerds who became very wealthy by being themselves.